Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you Littleton, the station, and I'm going to explain why I'm going to scrap it. So as you can see, Littleton is actually in a bit of a state of neglect. It started about 15 years ago, and the inspiration for it came from this book. If you haven't seen this book before, I would really recommend it. This book got me inspired to build a model railway. I'd always wanted one as a kid anyway, but this book is what made it seem easier than I previously thought. So I was like, okay, there's good tips and everything in here. Maybe there's something I can do. The inspiration for this layout comes from a few suggestions from in the book. So this is the tuning fork layout, very simple, line down, goes out into the shape of a tuning fork. Then there's the westward sidings, which is 2 lines of track with points across the middle, and then there's the Inglenook sidings as well. So these got me thinking that I could make a small layout that I could fit in my house at the time, in a hallway or to the side in the living room, that would be out the way, but they're ready and easy to use, and that I could go and play trains whenever I wanted to. So this is only 4 foot long. Add on an extra foot for a piece of wood out the back there for a fiddle yard, if you can call it that. And it's only a couple of feet high, so it's quite small and compact. And that's what I was aiming for, was a small, compact layout where trains could come in, stop at the station, or if it's a freight train, it could come down here, and then I could play around shunting trucks at the end. But that was the idea, to have a kind of like a goods yard, mixed with passenger stock as well, all in one, and to cram in as sort of like as many features as possible, but without making it look too crowded either. So you can see I've added in some levers there. We've got post box, phone box, a couple of benches. There were some lamps there, they've been removed. A water tower, and a shunter's hut, and then a little shed here that I was going to put some stuff in. I don't know what, I was fairly undecided. So first I'll talk about what I got right, and then I'll talk about what I got wrong, and I want to share my experience and hopefully help people avoid some of the pitfalls that I had with this first layout. Okay, so first thing I do like is the background. I think that's actually for N-gauge track rather than 00, but I picked that up and I like it. I like the look of it. I know it's not realistic, it's not photograph or anything like that, but I do like the rolling hills, and it was fairly easy to apply. The join in it isn't too noticeable, and I think it looked cute, and I like the fact that you can get several different ones, and they're like all have this hill in the middle, so that you can join a couple of different ones up. So there's like this one with a little church in it, this one's with the lake repeated twice. Obviously, for my main layout for Littleton Railway, I have just gone with plain blue for the back. I didn't fancy doing that all over again. I'm not a big fan of wallpapering, but for the rebuild of this, and it will be rebuilt, I probably will find this stuff again and reuse the same stuff, because I would like it on at least one part of the layout, even if it's not consistent with the rest of the layout. Right, so first pro with the background. Next, lots going on. It's multifunctional. So you've got the platform there, the car park, the water tower, the coal bunker, the signals, the lots of point work. Probably potentially too many. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of points. You've got a tunnel signal up there. A farm track and whatnot, and the idea is, goods would be loaded on and off of wagons here. And there was at one point a little made of matchsticks, a little platform that sat between the trucks so that you could load the trucks up on and off. That was the original idea. So it's multifunctional. There's lots going on. It was my first attempt at using point motors, so I have, if I just move the train out of the way, there it goes. It has to go fast, and I'll explain that in a minute. But yeah, I managed to fit it up with the bog standard Hornby solenoid point motors. And I have actually, you'll see, I've got 2 more here. What are they doing here? Well, impatience is the first lesson I got. Impatient. I wanted it done, so I laid the track and ballasted it before I bought the point motors for the other 2, and I was like, oh, I'll cut them afterwards. It's a bad idea. Really need to be patient because there's no way I can actually there's no nice way of cutting out the wood underneath this point and this point to make them to fit in the point motors without damaging the track, or making a real mess underneath the board. Plus also it means tipping this upside down, and that causes bits to get damaged because I'd already put some of the details on. So first lesson is think about it, don't give in to it's easy to get carried away and get excited, and I've done that a few times where I've gone ahead and done something and then realised I should have waited till I'd done this other step first before doing this. But it was my first attempt at wiring in point motors, and I am happy that they work nicely. This something else I like. I made this little console. It is on a scrap piece of wood, so that obviously it was only ever meant to be temporary. But the fact that I've got the controller and the switches here, and it's on a piece of wood, and I can move it around, I like that. That was a good idea. What was not a good idea is not allowing myself very much cable, so it's not like I can stand up and use that. But in principle, it was a nice idea. Let's see what was next. So point motors, busy countryside. I like the fact that it's, I like the look of it overall, the countryside feel. Sort of like I come from the West Country, and I like the rolling hills and the rivers and the big chunky stone buildings that you get in sort of like Cotswolds and whatnot. So, and was it along the Pines Express and whatnot, and in Somerset, I like those big chunky stone buildings that sort of like represent the area where I grew up. So I do really like overall the general look of it. Obviously I don't like the way it looks at the moment with all these bits coming off, all the white bits showing, this rough edge and all the rest of it. No, that's all terrible. Something else I like is Scaledale. So with this I bought Scaledale buildings, the platform and the water tower and the station office and whatnot, and I really like those, and yeah, I really like Scaledale. So which I have used on this one. This is all the new farm, is the home farm from the Scaledale range. So I much prefer that over the card kits. I have made a few card kits. I find them okay for doing little dioramas, but for these, I really love the resin buildings that Hornby and Bachmann do. I love the way they look. I like that they're just ready to use. You plonk them on, they're there, fine, and so I have enjoyed that. Yeah, so let's look at the cons then. I think that about sums it up for the cons. No, right. So the cons. So obviously I'd already mentioned my impatience and the fact that I'd rushed and hurried and made mistakes. So first mistake, yeah, I used MDF as the baseboard, whereas obviously on this I'm using pine for the supports and ply, nice thick ply for the base. Using MDF could have been okay, but I'll show you underneath, it's not properly supported, so it's just, you know, it's screwed in at that end, and then it's got this piece of wood in the middle holding it up, and that has caused the board to bow, and you can see a big old bend in it there that's not good, because it's bowing on the point work, which makes it even worse. And and as I said earlier, I have to run this train fast for a reason, and you'll see why. When it hits the point work, it gets stuck, so the only way over that is to go fast, and that's a huge problem, because I had intended that a shunter would live here basically on that siding, and its job would be to do the inguinate sidings part of it. So I haven't pointed this out already, but you can see, so the tuning fork is basically here. If you take that into account, then you've got your inguinate sidings here with your shunter, so you could do the shunter's puzzle. And then the westward sidings is basically these two lines running there with the points going across that way. And then this makes another tuning fork on the other side as well, although this isn't functional. It doesn't function very well, if at all. And that's something I'll talk about in a second. So so yeah, the idea was to have a little shunter. I do have a pug downstairs that would live there and shunt the trucks. So this one would come on scene, drop off some wagons. It would shunt them around, swap them over with what's ever on this siding, and then this would pick them up and bugger off up the line. But I can't do that because the little 040 that I have just cannot cope with these points. It absolutely hates them. I mean, the plaster I put on it is okay, but could do better. Yeah. So with that, and what with using the Hornby points with the chunky plastic piece in the middle, I realise now that was actually a terrible decision. Something else that's missing from the layout: droppers. The electricity comes in from the end of the track, so underneath here the cables are wired up, and then at the end there the cables are wired up again as well on the fiddle yard. So all the power comes in from that end to here. I mean, that was a smart move because of the way it's laid out. Because the power comes in from that end, it does spread down through all the sidings, and it works really well. You can isolate pieces of track very easily, and you can run it all off one controller using that to switch lanes. So that worked well, but because I use the Hornby points with the big chunky bits, the trains get stuck. Because it's warped, the trains get stuck, and because I don't have droppers throughout the whole thing, they pick up on dead spots very easily as well. So yeah, that's something that needs to be resolved. So so droppers will be added to the new board on everywhere where there's a join. And also I'll make it DCC as well. So the idea is to use digital trains with stay alives in them, so that they can actually get over the points if ever this problem crops its head. Also, I will be changing this for 3mm ply, 4 plywood, and build a proper base for it. Another problem with it, I wanted to add lighting. Again, I got carried away, put the buildings in place before making the holes for the lights, so these buildings are all unlit. I also bought the wrong lampposts. I bought lampposts to go on the station, but I didn't realise that they looked like they had LEDs in them. They didn't, so they're gone, and I have to find some lampposts that will look the part on this one, that will actually work. Another con is you can see this board is made out of bits of old chest of drawers or something like that. So it's just whatever height the wood was. But as you can see, it's too low, and the intention is that I've got the old common station here, and then what I'm going to call, or I'm planning on calling, Monsell Station there. And the idea is that there'll be a branch line goes from Monsell Station off round through this tunnel onto Littleton Station. But it's the wrong height, and that would be too steep for any train to climb up. So that is another reason why why this is going. The frame it's built on is not usable. Sorry, not suitable for the rest of the layout, so it needs to be raised. Another problem is I started this without knowing much about scenery, and so some of this scenery is really quite ugly. And I really don't like it. I was pleased with it at the time with how it was working, but as time's gone on and I've learned more about how to do scenery. So let's compare. There's the dirt path with the farm with all the static grass. Ignore the tunnel for now, that's going to be resolved. But this bit's a bit better, so you can see static grass with going into a gravel farmyard. And you've got the path there. I think that looks quite tidy. I'm really pleased with that. This I used ready-made sheets of grass that you just roll out and glue down. That, as you can see, has caused a problem, because over time that's absorbed moisture and warped, and it just broke the plaster that I'd done for the landscaping on the top. So I would not recommend using that product unless you're not going to put anything on it, because if it warps, it will ruin whatever is on top of it. So yeah, so I will not use ready to roll scatter. Other mistakes, I didn't know about static grass at the time, so I just bought packets of woodlands, scenics, whatever, tall grass. I mean, realistic colour is a realistic colour, but yeah, no, it's not. I put glue on the side, I cut it with the scissors, it went all dodgy, and then it's just all clumped there. That looks absolutely pants, to be honest. And on top of the bridge as well, it's all clumpy. So I'm not pleased with that at all. I don't like it. That needs to be ripped out and replaced with static grass. Because I use this ready roll sheet, when I built the hill, I didn't know what colour that was. The packaging was long gone. So I bought some scatter, put it down, it doesn't match, that's horrible. Also, didn't realise that you should paint the surface brown. As you can see, this is green. I've painted this green. the paint is actually just normal emulsion paint for doing DIY decoration. The problem is when you do that, they cycle through their colours, so I cannot get the same colour paint. It doesn't exist. so especially since Focus shut down and it was their paint. So yeah, that was a mistake, is using, trying to be cheap. Like, it would have worked if I had enough paint for the whole thing, but yeah, no, I didn't use brown paint. I used green paint. It looks messy. The edges are all messed up. It doesn't work with the grass. It doesn't give that earthy texture, that earthy look, that sort of like that deeper, rich sort of look that you should have. Yeah, it just went bad. So because I can't replicate the colours on this, and I want consistency on my train set as well, on my layout, so now I started using I picked a brand of paint that I use for my scenery, and I just use that brand now. That way I know I'm using the same colour every time, and if I run out I can get the same one again. I've made a note of it. Make a note of what you use. That's very important. Even if you don't keep the packaging, take a photograph of the packaging and save it in OneNote or something, or write it down so that you know what it is that you used. Otherwise, if you need to repair it, for example, you need to cut paint over any pieces where there might be white showing through, and that paint, you can't remember what paint you used, then your repair is probably gonna look just as bad as the damage that it's covering up. Yeah, so let's talk about the future. So for this bit, let's call in some help in the form of Duck. Hello, Duck. Right, so what Duck is demonstrating here is the passenger part of the line. I had originally planned to do some kind of push-pull service here, because I don't have, there's no passing loop on this. Currently, in this current layout, in this format, it's not possible to have a passing loop, because this station needs to be a certain distance from those points, which means it goes all the way up there, which means the train has to stop there. If you put points in there, when it goes round, it would clip the carriage that is left behind or whatever. Also, it would interfere with the water tower where I wanted it to go, and all the rest of it. And also, a passing loop would eliminate this head shunt for the pug. And the idea was, one thing I really wanted was a little tank engine that just lived on the layout. It was here, and then other trains, goods and passengers, would come and go, just come on and go off. If you put a passing loop in there, you don't need to have the little pug anymore. So so that's something that I need to think about quite hard, because I chose for my layout 1950s X LMS, so Midland basically, which Avon Valley Railway is an old Midland line. Now, Midland did have push-pull services, so they did do a push-pull coach, and they did do push-pull engines. I think it was the sort of like the IVAC Class 2 or the Standard Class 2, something like that. They were fitted for push-pull, cute little tank engines, and then you had like converted LMS wagons. One big problem with that, you can get the Class 2 from Bachmann, but the carriage doesn't exist anywhere. No one does the push-pull LMS carriage. There's one person who 3D prints them, and they want £100 for an unpainted shell. and I don't trust myself. I don't have the skill to paint a carriage, an entire carriage. I'm quite happy painting the seats inside, because if you bodge it up slightly, you're not gonna tell. But as for the exterior, I want it to look like a proper model, one that's not been hammer-fisted together. And so that's what's causing me issue, is struggling to find the right stock to make this work, because I can't get the push-pull carriage that I want, because it doesn't exist. And the alternative is to do some kind of like a single car diesel train, you know, class 101 or something like that. One or two carriages, but I don't like detailed products, because I break the details too much. And so the only ones that I can find out there are the old Triang ones, and the Triang ones don't like very much the modern track, so that can be a bit of an issue. And also they're a little too undetailed. My favourite rolling stock comes from the 90s, early 2000s, when they started adding more detail to it, but not so much that it broke in your hands. So for the future, for the rebuild, I need to give some serious thought as to whether or not I do the passing loop. And if I do, then I need to find a home for the little pug that I have. I would have to rethink some other part of my layout to find somewhere for it to live and do something. And I really like that little pug. So yeah, but its home is intended for here. The alternative they come up with is there is somebody who does. You can convert existing models to do push-pull, and it makes me quite nervous. But I did pick up this carriage for £10. So I think you have to use a brake coach, as far as I'm aware, for the LMS one. And so basically that end, take a saw to it, cut it off, and you can buy a brass plate that has the correct window fittings and everything. And then I'd have a push-pull, and I could use that with my Ginty, for example. So I could have a Ginty connected up to a push-pull carriage, and then that would work. So that's like a whole nother project, is buying that brass plate, taking a saw, a razor saw to this, and seeing if I can do a good job of it. And hopefully paint it in a way that makes it look unnoticeable that it's been modified. Let's see, so what else for the future? The platform, so there we go. So the platform's currently Scaledale. I'd like to replicate the original platform on Oldland Common Station, which is this old, it was a wooden halt. So I've already approached Bunter's Yard about Bunter's Yard about having a custom kit made for a wooden platform with that will have fencing, nameplate, and a little corrugated shelter, corrugated iron shelter, and that building will be whisked off to another part, potentially the station over there, maybe. So new platform, plywood, passing loop potentially, but hopefully not. I'm also more experienced, so the mistakes that I made, I've learned from those, and so I'll hopefully be able to do a much better job of the scenery and not do this. Don't like that at all. Not make it in a way that means it will break over time. This siding may come out, I don't know. the idea was to have an abandoned siding at the back there with some like dirty old trucks or wagons on or whatever, but it's actually physically unusable because you can see it's raised up quite high, quite a height difference there, and that height difference happens over this one piece of track, and you can see quite a bad kink in the line there. Even so, that track is unusable for anything with 6 wheels or more, and even 4-wheeled rolling stock tilts on this can get caught and then wobble. And as I've got that little 4-wheeled pug, they're very, very susceptible to losing contact. So this ended up completely unusable in any way, shape or form. So yeah, so I do want, I was going for some extra interest there with an extra level, and it also raises up the broken stuff behind the wagon so you can still see it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. Yeah, that's just that can't be repeated. Yeah, so, and then this will have like a new frame to bring it up to the correct height as well. I don't know about whether I'll make it any deeper or wider. I really like the size it is, and I'll have to have a think about whether or not it's possible to make it detachable from the rest of the layout, because it would be nice to have a section that can be removed and taken to a show, perhaps. I don't know. Or I might just do another piece that I can take to shows and just install this permanently up here, because of course making this taller means that it would then actually need to come off of its base completely. It wouldn't have a, the bits that stand it up would either need to stay in the loft because it won't fit through the loft hatch, or it would have to come apart into 2 pieces and then travel like that. I can't see myself wanting to do that too much either, especially if I've got lots of delicate pieces. Getting it up and down through a loft hatch is very, very tricky. Yeah, so on top of that, I'll be looking at doing lighting, change for Pico track, Pico point motors, change the DCC, change, did I say droppers, building interiors. It'd be nice to do some kind of like building interior in there. Sculpting everything a bit better, static grass, all that kind of good stuff, and also thinking a bit more about this area here and how this functions, because whilst you have this path going down it with the little tractor marks in it, which I think looked quite effective originally, obviously there's no scatter on there or anything to add realism, but when you get down to this end, how does all this function? What's going on here? I had initially planned for some kind of livestock transfer here, because of course I have the dairy farm up here. I have some cattle wagons over on the other set. I have to figure out a way of fitting a cattle dock into the other station, and of course, if that was done here, how would that be managed? What would be going on? What would be the method of storage and transfer of livestock in such a tight space that's only wide enough for an Oxford car, an Oxford tractor there. So those are the problems I encountered with the layout. Those are the lessons that I've learnt, and those are the things that I'm going to be looking to address. So the station that my model railway is named after will be going and will be rebuilt, and hopefully I'll get to make a start on that maybe later in the year, maybe early next year. But my mind has been made up. It will be far too difficult to rectify the problems, the mistakes that I've made with this, and make it good. Alright, okay, thank you for watching. Hope you found that interesting or useful, and I'll see you again soon.